hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. After a decade of absolute dominance of the ska and rocksteady eras in the 60s, the legendary Studio One was overtaken by other Jamaican studios like Dynamic Sounds and Channel One at the start of the 1970s. However, by the end of that decade, it began to make a spectacular comeback as a re-engineered outfit, courtesy of a new crop of artists who were cheering up the reggae and dancehall scenes. These new kids on the block included the great Sugar Minott, Freddie McGregor, and the subject of today's video in the amazing Michigan and Smiley. When they hit the scene in 1979, they made incredible waves as a duo in an environment that only knew solo acts, courtesy of their humorous, lively, and very exciting call and response technique. As part of the first generation of dancehall DJs, they would score an amazing slew of smash hits in Jamaica, and were not only a sonic delight, but were fashion trendsetters with their sharp tracksuits, gold chains, and fedora hats. In fact, they were so influential that the pair were blamed in some quarters for Jamaica's polio outbreak of 1982 on the strength of a song of theirs called Diseases, which we will touch on later in this video. Unlike the mostly one-dimensional dancehall artists that we see today, they were celebrated for touching on diverse topics from politics, spirituality, or just partying. By the time the 1980s rolled in, their music was everywhere and even enjoyed major acceptance in the then fast-growing hip-hop scene in the US. But as dancehall was going global, with artists like Yellowman leading the line, the pair seemed to slip under the radar and somehow didn't seize their moment, prompting us to ask the question, what happened to this amazing pair? Let's take a look at Michigan and Smiley, dancehall's first duo. Now the tale of these guys begins with them as just two friends from high school in Kingston that shared a super strong love for music. The ever-smiling Anthony Fairclough took the stage name of Papa Michigan, while his pal in the stern-faced, serious-looking Errol Bennett was given the ironic stage name of General Smiley. They first began to perform together in 1978 while living close to each other in a community called Union Garden in Kingston 13. They would formulate a style that was unique, unlike any other at the time. While most musical duos sang different verses in their songs, each of them would toast a line and the other would respond with one of his own, all within one verse. They first began to DJ on a local outfit called the Third World Sound System before they moved to ply their trade at a bigger one called Black Harmony. They would amass a healthy following for their skills and their unique status as the only DJ duo in Jamaica. And as fate would have it, while other acts would need to hustle hard to get recorded by the island's biggest producers, their own opportunity would come on a platter. By 1979, Coxsone Studio One was on the rebound and working hard to stay in the conversation as many new outfits had stolen their thunder. After dominating in the 60s, these new studios, as well as dancehall's rise in the 70s, saw Studio One being left behind by studios in the mold of Channel One and Harry J's Records. But in 1977, Sugar Minott, then a young, hustling solo artist, approached Coxsone Dodd with an irresistible offer. Instead of booking studio time to record new instrumentals for new artists, he advised Dodd that the studio should simply draw from his catalogue of thousands of instrumentals recorded over the past decade. This idea blew Coxsone Dodd's mind and marked Studio One's first foray into dancehall. In addition to Sugar Minott, young artists like Freddie McGregor and Johnny Osborne would mark a renaissance at Studio One. The owner of Black Harmony Sound System, where Michigan and Smiley were making waves, was friendly with Coxsone Dodd and felt the duo had what it took to help Studio One's comeback. So one fine day, he took them to Studio One and pushed them into the recording booth to record a song. They put their slick toasting on top of some classic Studio One rhythms and would impress Coxsone Dodd a great deal. Early in 1979, Studio One unleashed their debut single, Rubber Dub Style, which became a smash hit in Jamaica. If you were around then, you couldn't escape it, even if you wanted to. It went to number 1 on the singles charts, was on steady rotation on the airwaves, and was the most requested song at parties and sound system events. They were like nothing anyone had heard before. They weren't just the first DJ duo with a novel call and response technique, but they also delivered it with humor and style. And they would also light up Jamaica with the number 1 song named Nice Up the Dance and the song Jah Are the Creator. They were not just superstars by the end of 1979, but Studio One was back in the reckoning. They would end the year on a high note with their debut album, also named Rubber Dub Style. The pair were very friendly with Bob Marley and often hung out with him at his home in the iconic number 56 Hope Road. In 1980, they again made history as the first dancehall duo to record at Top Gun Studios when they voiced the massive hit titled One Love Jam Down, which went to number 1 on the charts and stayed there for 3 months, eventually becoming the biggest song of the year. They were in the reckoning as the hottest DJs in the land and soon came on the radar of ace producer Henry John Joe Laws, who was then orchestrating a worldwide dancehall revolution with artists like Barrington Levy and Yellowman. It was he that produced their song Diseases in 1981 that became their biggest ever hit, an absolute scorcher and juggernaut of a track that is today regarded as one of the all-time greatest dancehall cuts. And the song Diseases was massive to say the least, and was a Rasta influence warning to sinners and the ungodly about the impending wrath of Jah. And besides the song's immense commercial success, it also caused huge societal ripples when a polio outbreak hit Jamaica in March 1982, and the news would spread like wildfire that Michigan and Smiley were responsible. The track was huge home and abroad, and got Stevie Wonder interested in working with the pair. The duo was sizzling hot and on the cusp of global superstardom. Island Records had even bought the rights to One Love Jam Down and were making plans to have Michigan and Smiley as their first dancehall artists. But for reasons which aren't too clear, the label put their music on a shelf. But despite the setback, they would end that year with 2 albums, In Down Depression and Step by Step, and crowned it all with a spectacular showing at that year's edition of the Reggae Sunsplash. But by then, Jamaica was a mess, still reeling from all the terrible violence of the 1980 elections and severe economic problems. And this all led to a massive wave of immigration as many Jamaicans left the island in search of greener pastures abroad. General Smiley in particular became disillusioned with life in Jamaica and moved to California as part of that wave. But despite that distance, the pair would manage to put out the album Sugar Daddy in 1983. But being in 2 different countries would eventually take its toll on the duo. They would put out solo singles over the years and would record joint ones when they could. 7 years after their last project, they released the album titled Back in the Biz in 1990, followed by Reality Must Rule Again in 1992 and Uptown Downtown in 1995. It's often reported in the media that the duo broke up after the last album, but if you ask them, Michigan and Smiley never split up. Today, Michigan is still doing his thing in Jamaica musically and has even taken on acting projects on the side, while General Smiley is still tearing it up big time on the reggae scene in California. They still link up at least twice a year to perform live in several reggae festivals around the globe, to the utmost delight of their fans, who are always happy to see that they're still going strong. And while they may not be recording new albums anytime soon, their legacy is definitely intact as one of dancehall's greatest ever acts, and the first duo in the genre who inspired the likes of Clint Eastwood and General Saint, as well as the magnificent Chaka Demus and Pliers. And it all began with the delightful duo of Michigan and Smiley. So there you have it. Thank you for watching this video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, Jah bless.